In the first lesson of our series, we studied about the signs of the end times. If you really want to know about the future, exactly what is going to happen and why, where and even when, then you must turn to the thousands of prophecies recorded in the Bible. History has proven the extraordinary, unerring accuracy of Bible prophecy. Therefore, there can be no doubt that its hundreds of prophecies about the last days of our planet Earth will also be fulfilled just as surely as the ones that have already been fulfilled in the past. The only question is when. Jesus himself warned us to be on the lookout for signs he said would come to pass just before his second coming and the end of the world as we know it.
War, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. No period has witnessed the escalation of wars as has the 20th century. The Red Cross has estimated that over 100 million people have been killed in wars since the 20th century began. Up until 1914, war had never been universal, but in both World War I and II, total war was waged. Famine. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines. Matthew 24:7. Throughout the 1990s, more than 100 million children died from illness and starvation. Those 100 million deaths could have been prevented for the price of 10 stealth bombers or what the world spends on its military in 2 days. The World Health Organization estimates that 1/3 of the world is well fed, 1/3 is underfed, and 1/3 is starving. Over 4 million will die this year. Plagues, and there shall be famines and pestilences. The Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS estimates that there are now 40 million people living with HIV or AIDS worldwide. Most of them do not know they carry HIV and may be spreading the virus to others. In the U.S., approximately 1 million people have HIV or AIDS, and 40,000 Americans become newly infected with HIV each year. According to the CDC, it is estimated that a quarter of all people with HIV in the U.S. do not know.
Earthquakes, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in various places. The World Almanac tells us that there were only 21 earthquakes of major strength between the years 1000 and 1800. But between 1800 and 1900 there were 18 major earthquakes. In the next 50 years, between 1900 and 1950, there were 33 major quakes, and between 1950 and 1991, there were 93 major earthquakes, almost tripling the number of the previous half-century in claiming the lives of 1.3 million people around the world. Traffic and accidents. Imagine an ancient prophet seeing a vision of our modern superhighways with hundreds of cars speeding along with their headlights blazing at night. How would he describe it? Now remember, he'd never seen or even imagined anything like an automobile before. Well, 2,600 years ago, the prophet Nahum foresaw that in the last days before Jesus returns. Their chariots shall rage in the streets, they shall jostle one against another in the broad ways. They shall seem like torches, and they shall run like the lightning. Rapid transportation. Many shall run to and fro. In 1789, it took George Washington 8 days to travel 200 miles to his inauguration in New York City. The fact that it took 8 days is not significant. What is amazing is that Julius Caesar could have traveled just as rapidly. No real progress had been made in thousands of years. But in a very short period of time, look how mankind has advanced. Now man not only drives at enormous speeds, but a jet can fly around the world in 24 hours and a spacecraft in 80 minutes. Knowledge increased. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Knowledge has certainly increased within this generation, almost beyond imagination. In fact, according to research studies, the total share of human knowledge is now doubling every 8 years. The most basic building block of computer technology, the transistor, was invented at Bell Labs in 1948. In 1994, a computer chip could hold 3.1 million transistors, more than twice as many as the previous year's model. By the end of the decade, a chip will contain more than 1 billion transistors. Machines today have become so complicated, only the most highly trained technicians can even understand them. Violence. The FBI reports that 24,530 people were murdered in the U.S. in 1994 alone. The U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics estimates that a whopping 1.1 million violent crimes were committed with guns in 1992. Many of the victims were teenagers, killed by other teenagers, who seem to have no concept of the value of life. Society wrings its hands and agonizes why. The occult. Now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. U.S. public schools departed from the faith when in 1963 the Bible and prayer were officially banned. Now thousands of those same schools are leading accredited courses in the doctrines of devils, the occult, and Satanism. It is estimated that there are over 200,000 practicing witches in the United States, and there are literally millions of Americans who dabble in some form of the occult, psychic phenomenon, spiritualism, demology, and black magic. Statistics show that occult book sales have doubled in the last 4 years. The gospel preached. After telling his disciples that some of these signs that they've just seen, wars, famines, plagues, and earthquakes, were just the beginning of sorrows, Jesus went on to foretell a sign that would signify when the actual time of the end had arrived. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. The Christian Almanac for 1990 reports that the gospel has been preached to over 4 billion people, and Christian churches now exist in all 251 countries of the world. Every year about 4 billion gospel tracts are distributed around the globe in over 120 million Bibles. The entire Bible, or portions of it, have now been translated into some 2,062 different languages, and is available to about 98% of the world's population. The gospel is also preached from over 2,000 Christian radio and television stations, and religious shows can be seen on many more thousands of secular stations.